Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Bros You Knows. Here's your host, Viet.
Thank you, honey, for that amazing intro. And I'm joined in the studio with David. We had an exciting UFC London this weekend.
It was much better than I expected. I expected something fun, but not that fun.
All right, so we got a treat for you guys today. We have Anderson, the Spider Silva. Anderson, what's up, Spider Bro? Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, Anderson. So you're understandably a little down after your loss, but the fans loved it. They thought that you did really well. Why don't you walk us through just the process getting to that fight, and then the fight itself? What happened? So I got really booked up for this fight. I ate a lot of Burger King. Used to be my sponsor for this stupid Reebok. And man, I got really big, bros. It's alright. And I went there, and I did my first weight check. And I was like, oh man, I'm at 210, cut down to 205 so easy. And then they were like, dude, I guess I signed up for a middleweight fight. So, dang, I had to really cut a bunch of weight. So they put me on all sorts of diuretics and stuff.
That does not sound comfortable, Anderson.
It wasn't. Wow, and I mean, you look great. A lot of your patented hand movement, all that stuff was back.
The little shimmy.
Oh man, that was not martial arts, bros. That's my Brazilian digestive dance. I mean, seriously, I just took a bunch of laxatives and I was just trying to hold it all in, bros. I mean, when you saw me against the cage, I wasn't trying to fight or show off or anything. I was just please don't poop. Please don't poop. Yeah,
that would have been really awkward.
That would have been really bad, Anderson. Well, you fought hard. You really gave the fans a show. People in London, they're really cool bros, and Bisping, he's a cool bro.
He respects you, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I respect him. I gotta go. I mean, I'm still working through all that Burger King through my system, but
please.
Thanks for having me on, bros. Hey, thanks, Anderson. Anderson, the Spider Silva. Wow.
It sounds like the Itsy Spider almost came out the spout again.
Don't know how to take that. All right. Very interesting fight. I think so interesting because it happened. It was one of those weird things where it happened almost exactly like you would think it would happen, and you almost didn't expect that.
Right.
I mean, this was a fight where Anderson Silva, we keep thinking he's going to fall off the edge and just become really bad. And what we're noticing is that with really, really high skilled level guys, and this is why they're much older and they're still
than other athletes.
And then other athletes,
yeah.
It's because technique is so important, skill is so important. He still has all of that, so he can still compete at a very high level. His cardio seems shot. He was up against the cage, looked like he was doing some of his patented showmanship, but he didn't fire off any counters. I'm just thinking he was straight up taking a break and just hoping Bisping would lay off of him. And many times Bisping did lay off him. Did not want to engage in any of those games. There was one time Anderson Silva was standing against the cage and Bisping just took a step back and folded his arms and stood there. That was such a cool moment. No hate with the decision. We called Bisping to win this one.
Yeah. And
we thought he would win it by being the guy that would press forward, grind. He had a takedown, almost a finish there in the second round. I don't know if it was almost a finish, but he definitely had Anderson in a bad spot. Anderson came back, third round, knocked him out.
Basically. Yeah.
So
saved by the bell right there.
Dana White said it was 2-2. He had it 2-2 going into the fifth round. Whoever won the fifth round would win it, and he saw Silva winning it. Looks like a lot of people on Twitter were agreeing with the decision. It was awesome in that I don't know if it was a controversial decision. I think most people think that it was really close, but man, no screams for a rematch. There wasn't too much home cooking, controversy or anything like that. I thought. You go, MMA fans. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You handled this match very maturely. That's the way
much more maturity than I was expecting. That's for sure.
We're not gonna get into it too much. Just a couple notes I wanted to make. This fight really reminded me of that Georges St. Pierre Johnny Hendricks fight, where one guy wins the decision by doing things within the scoring category that should win him the decision. But if anyone that didn't know anything about the UFC or MMA or fighting and just saw that as a street fight, The other guy won.
Right, exactly.
And it always begs
the guy with his face busted up lost.
And it's it's the way Joe Rogan, I think he had this analogy once. It's like in football, how stupid it would be if you scored like 10 touchdowns in one quarter and the other team scored one field goal and you won that quarter 10-9. Like no matter what.
Good point.
It's hard, and it's hard. I think that we're trying to address that. We've talked on this. We're big advocates of actually using 10-8 rounds.
Oh yeah.
And
that third round, I think, is a perfect example of what should have been a 10-8 round.
Another example, and this is an example where a 10-8 round was used. Just another fight that I found sort of analogous to this one. That Frankie Edgar-Maynard fight where Edgar was knocked out by Maynard.
Yeah.
Came back, ended up winning that fight by decision, but was knocked out, similar to how Bisping was knocked out. Credit to him, he got up. He didn't have a corner because they just didn't have their stuff together. Anderson was over there celebrating. The ref was checking on Bisping instead of going over there telling him to get off the cage, have his crew come and look at him. Just sort of a mess in the octagon. Everyone was so
cluster.
Everyone was so confused. I don't think people could even enjoy the fourth round because everyone was like, "What just happened?
Yeah.
Is this supposed to? Is the fight supposed to even be happening right now?" Credit to Bisping. You could tell he was clearing out the cobwebs.
Came out firing in the fourth.
And props to him. I don't really know where he goes from here. If Anderson looks like his cardio's gone down, Bisping looks to me definitely a step slower. Everything to him, his reaction, everything. I don't know how competitive he is against the other top contenders in that division, but this was a great victory for him. Obviously an emotional one, beating a guy that he said himself he looked up to. So congratulations to Michael Bisping. That was an awesome fight. All right, we're going to move on. It's kind of crazy. The title fight is not the
the co-main.
It's the co-main. This is a title fight between...
Can you imagine if Ronda Rousey was the co-main?
Oh, it wouldn't happen. Well, actually, with Conor.
With Conor, it would have.
They wouldn't put the two of them on the same... Like, both of them could sell their own card if they were the only name on the card. You're not going to put the two of them on. Well, they might... Well, they won't for 200 now because she's not going to be fighting.
Yeah.
Holly Holm, Miesha Tate. These are two of the best bantamweight female fighters on the planet. Both incredible. Both bring their own unique skill set. We know a bit about Holly Holm, her kickboxing, boxing background. We've talked about it a bit. If you listen to our Bros, you can go back to it. We broke down her game a little bit in our breakdown of the Holly Holm Ronda Rousey fight. So we're just getting to Miesha Tate a little bit. Cupcake. Grappling is her game. She's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's an excellent grappler. She was a silver medalist at the FILA World Championships. And that's really her forte.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to let David sort of break down Miesha Tate's game a little bit for you guys.
All right. So, well, it's like you said, I mean, grappling is by far her forte. Like, the ground game, the wrestling, it's what she's built a career off of. But her striking is not to be overlooked. I mean, she's obviously no Holly Holm when it comes to her striking, but she is serviceable up there. She's able to get in wars with people. She has a good chin. But her game plan is usually take some hits to get hit. Take some hits to hit, get it in close, and then drag the fight to the ground where she usually has the advantage.
When she takes some hits to get hit, she usually loses those fights.
Well, her last loss was to Rousey, and that was when Rousey was doing her, world beater tour thing that she was doing. But Miesha Tate did last much longer than anyone else lasted against Rousey until Holly Holm comes along and dethrones her. But in this fight, I think that because of Holm's superior striking, I mean, arguably the best in, women's UFC, Miesha Tate has to take this fight to the ground in order to have a chance of winning. And, I mean, it will be dangerous. She has just to get in there and get close to Holm, who has, great hands and great legs. But her goal will have to be to take the fight to the ground, where Holm, honestly, is untested. We haven't seen Holly Holm have to deal with, a wrestler on top of her. So if Miesha Tate can do that, I think it's her fight to win.
One of the popular things a lot of pundits, fans are saying going into this fight, Miesha Tate's a bigger test than Ronda Rousey was for Holly Holm.
I think stylistically, yes.
You agree with that?
I would agree with that. Miesha Tate is, I would say, more well-rounded than Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is very, very, very good at a handful of things, and that's been enough to beat everyone and beat them convincingly. But I think Miesha Tate is good enough in a lot of different areas that I think provides a tougher matchup for Holm. Yeah.
I like Miesha Tate. She's a grinder. I like to think of her as just her situation. She's kind of like the Frankie Edgar of the women's bantamweight. You know,
that's a very good
Kind
analogy.
of overlooked over and over again for title shots. She's clearly fought and earned.
Yeah.
She's got that great grappling background and then has kind of added striking over the years. Just like Edgar, we've seen her go through wars. We've seen her in fights where she would flat out just get beat the first few rounds, hang around, and then grind out a victory. But I disagree with you. I don't think that this is a bigger challenge than Ronda. It's not fair to say Ronda destroyed or Ronda beat Tate and then Ronda got destroyed by Holly Holm. Therefore, the logical conclusion, Holly Holm beats Miesha Tate. But I just don't see how Miesha Tate could possibly give Holly Holm any trouble. And we're going to kind of get into this a little bit. Holly Holm is an incredible fighter. One of the things she does really well, Robin Black brought this up in one of his breakdowns. Just in general, in mixed martial arts, it's all about solving the puzzle, solving the fighter. And he said that all along, a lot of fighters, especially like in the early days of the UFC, it was like, oh, this guy was better at striking than me, so I just have to work on my striking a little bit, and then I can kind of be able to hang with him and then do what I do best. And we're starting to see now people that just eliminate complete portions of people's games. Holly Holm took out Ronda Rousey's ground game completely because she just didn't allow her to do it. She had a specific game plan on how to avoid that. I think she's going to be able to do it against Miesha Tate, too. If you look at Miesha Tate's fights, you know, she likes to set things up, and she really loves to shoot those doubles. That's really hard against Holly Holm. She's already going to be circling out and angling out as she's fighting her. It's going to be really hard for her to time that down. I mean, if she can get in close, get in the clinch, trip her, do something like that, I might be able to see that, but that's not really Tate's game. That's going to be really hard. And even if she gets her to the ground, Tate's a much smaller fighter. We saw Holly Holm push Ronda Rousey off of her, and I think Ronda Rousey's stronger than Tate. We saw Holly Holm was stronger than Ronda Rousey. I think Holly Holm's going to clearly be stronger than Tate in this fight. I don't see, even if Miesha gets it to the ground, which I think will be really difficult, that she could hold Holly there. I think Holly will be able to push her off. Okay. And then get this fight back to the feet. On the feet, man, it's not even close.
On the feet, it's no contest. You're right there.
You know, Miesha Tate has this one thing that she's gotten really good at. We saw this in the Jessica Eye fight. Her right hand's become a devastating weapon. So what she has done is she has evolved as a striker. What we saw early days from Miesha Tate was sort of a more Vitor Belfort offensive blitz. She would open herself up for attacks, and she was just kind of going with a flurry.
And just throw a lot.
Against Jessica Eye, what we saw, a much more disciplined Miesha Tate. Allowing Jessica Eye to come to her at times, countering, really setting up that right, and she's got some power there. That's really nice. Again, it's going to be really tough. Holly Holm's a southpaw. When you're a southpaw fighter fighting an orthodox, it creates a V. This creates an open angle. I mean, it makes it harder for an orthodox fighter to protect the different angles. Your right hand can't block the straight and overhand left, and then the same thing with your left hand. It can't quite block both the right jab and the hook. Whereas the southpaw fighter is very used to doing these same things against orthodox fighters. They fight orthodox fighters all the time. Yeah. It's going to be tough because what she needs to set up is going to be something that inherently already going to be avoided by Holly Holm circling out and being southpaw.
And also just being longer and be able to fight from a further distance.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If it were just the southpaw, the orthodox, if they had the same skill level, Holmes is going to have the advantage just because of that and because she's the bigger, stronger, faster fighter, and she has a 4-inch reach advantage. So just because of that, I think she would beat her. That's taken away the fact that Holly Holmes is a world-class striker. Tate's a really good striker. She's not on Holly Holmes' level. Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really tough. You see Tate, she tends to fight very linearly at times. Holly Holm, like I said, against Ronda Rousey, we see she's really good at circling out, stepping out at angles. It's going to allow her to claim the T position. Now, the T position is when you have one fighter and then the other fighter basically catches them and is able to stand in front of them at a perpendicular angle. This allows the fighter that's claimed the T position to fight with both hands, whereas the other person that's kind of caught, they can't really use their lead hand. It won't allow them to do anything. It's what they call the 2-to-1 advantage in boxing. as a southpaw, Holly Holm is going to be able to establish this, I think, over and over again. The wide attacks of Holly Holm, her ability to kick, her punch and then set up her kicks. Orthodox fighters, sometimes when they fight against southpaws that are really good strikers, they tend to start trying to mirror certain things. So they'll trade that right for right, that left for left. And man, Holly Holm, she's going to be doing her thing, keeping the distance. Eventually, Miesha Tate's going to have to close in, try to bridge that gap, do something.
It's her only path to victory.
Right. So let's say she powers in and tries to really set up that right. Boom, she's going to get cracked with that hook. Now, if she tries to be more disciplined, really set up that jab, then I see Holly Holm taking a step out on the other side of Tate's lead leg, using her lead hand to push down on that jab. And what that does is it opens up her left straight right down the middle on the center line. It's one of those things where, yeah, Tate may be better in like different areas versus Ronda Rousey, but in martial arts, it's not about kind of closing that gap. You have to like beat somebody at an area to have a path to victory. So I'm going to be a little different than a lot of what the other people are saying, thinking that like Miesha Tate's going to offer Holly Holm a bigger challenge. I don't think so. I don't think she'll be able to do anything that Ronda Rousey have already done.
Do you think it'll be an easier fight for Holm than the Rousey fight was?
I think that Rousey set herself up, and so she got caught. Holmes is a really smart fighter, so it's possible that fight could have gone to decision, and she would have just easily just outpaced Ronda the entire time. And it could be Tate's tough. She has a chin.
She has a chin.
So I don't. She may last a decision. So it may
She's
go
only
longer.
been knocked out once, if I recall correctly.
It's gonna be a tough fight for Tate, but she's a tough girl. Her only path to victory, she's gonna have to eat one to land that right, which has shown power. Really hurt Holly Holm. She probably won't land as many shots, so when she does land a shot, it's got to hurt her.
That's to count.
She has to really mix things up, change levels decisively.
When she changes levels, like you said, it has to be decisively. It can't be any of this. She has to commit to it.
Give the fans what they want. The predictions. Yeah, I'm predicting a finish by Holly Holm. Tate's tough. I see it going 4 rounds.
All right. Make the championship rounds.
Make the championship rounds.
Okay.
Tate's tough. What about you?
I'm going with Tate in this one. I think she wins a hard-fought split decision.
Oh, wow.
48-47, 47-48, 48-47. With massive amounts of controversy and an immediate rematch. I don't know.
That's a bold call. I don't see it, but that's why you have the fights. Props to both of them. Tate obviously has been gunning for a title shot. Thought that she was actually going to get that Ronda Rousey fight. Holm, credit to her. She could have waited out, fought Rousey whenever she came back. She already smoked her once. She wanted to fight. She's taking on Tate. Tate's not an easy fighter. It's a tough fighter. Another thing I wanted to point out, just like in terms of how different the striking is, Sarah Kaufman, that fight against Miesha Tate, she gave Tate some trouble, especially when she angled out, mixed up her striking. Kaufman, Winklejohn camp, she's trained with Holly Holmes a couple times, and they've had an interview with her, and she was like, yeah, her striking is no joke. And I think that's the evolution of MMA. It's about taking away entire portions of people's games.
That's what Conor does.
Conor McGregor, we're about to talk about that guy. Let's talk about him. Conor McGregor against Chad Mendes. They talked about how, you're taught not to like kick, especially against a wrestler. They're taught to kind of catch your leg, be able to take you down. He turned, and it was speed over power. He whipped that kick, make it so fast that Chad Mendes couldn't catch it. And that did a couple things. One, Chad Mendes already kind of has his hands down, ready to catch that kick. And now he has to adjust to how fast that was. And then he has to adjust to the fact that he couldn't catch it. And with his hands down, couldn't catch the kick, couldn't initiate the takedown. He's kind of in no man's land. And boom, he gets cracked up top by Conor. That's what these top-level fighters are doing. They're not learning a little bit of wrestling or learning a little bit of so-and-so to like deal with someone that's elite-level wrestling. They're finding out ways to just take out that portion of their game. You look at that Stephen Thompson-Johnny Hendricks fight. Yeah. Stephen Thompson, it was not like, oh, yeah, I worked on my wrestling so that when it becomes a wrestling match, I can, like, hang with. No, Johnny is a world-class wrestler. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in, jump out. I'm not going to allow him to touch me. I'm not going to allow him to set up what he wants to do. We're going to see a lot of high-level fighters start doing that. So that Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz. We left you guys on a little bit of a cliffhanger last time, and I'm going to call out David a little bit.
What?
David doesn't have an opinion, guys. David has a mood. He has a certain mood that he's in, so he'll either agree or disagree with you. I said on the show, what about the Notorious Nudge? And for the response for Conor for the Stockton Slap. I said Notorious Nudge. He said that was lame. After the show the next day, I told him, I came up with another one, Dublin Dap. And he was like, that's great. And then then he talked just the other day, and I was like, and he was like, oh, what was it? What was the one you came up with? I was like, the Dublin Dap. And he was like, oh, that's lame. I was like, what's wrong with you? This is Dublin Drub. That's what I have. That's my suggestion.
Actually, the Dublin Drub is much better than Dublin Dap.
Well,
I think we run with that one.
Either way, because I come up with great ideas. Did you have a suggestion? Did you have one? Oh, we actually have another one. Yeah, this is a courtesy. He's been on this show before. Man Alexander. He texted in to us the Kill Carney Cold Cock. So that was pretty good, Matt.
Nice
Shout
job,
out
Matt.
to you.
Nice job.
All right. Ding. Connor. Same story. We've seen this before. Brandao. Mendez. Last minute. Doesn't matter. As of right now, he's a minus 400. Has a minus 400 advantage over Nate on the betting lines. Crazy. Most people see Connor winning this one. Breaking out just a little bit more. And I'm gonna call you out, David. I'm gonna call you out. Right. Our last bros, you say for Connor to win, Connor needs to do what Connor do. What does that mean, man? Come on, give the fans a little something. I mean, obviously Connor is special.
Okay, so in this fight, Connor is facing something he's never had to face before, which is the longer, taller, bigger fighter. However, even though Nate Diaz is, taller and longer, and fights at a higher weight class usually. This is Connor's first time at 170. He's never been above 155 before. Connor definitely still has the speed advantage, and I think the question is whether or not that power moves up with him, and I think it does. I don't see any reason why the power wouldn't move up with him. And Diaz, Connor pressures his opponents a lot, but he's also a very, very, very smart counterpuncher. We saw that in his 13-second knockout of Aldo. And I think Diaz's style, he definitely opens himself up to a lot of counters. And even though Diaz is bigger, he doesn't quite have the power that some other guys at 170 or even 155 have. So Connor not only does he have the speed advantage, I think he still will have the power advantage over this one too. And he'll use that speed, he'll use that power, and Diaz, has a tendency to get sloppy every now and then, and I think Connor tags him and puts away in the first round.
Going with the Mystic Mac prediction.
Yeah, Mystic Mac said first round knockout. I can't really pick something else.
Hard to argue with Mystic Mac. We've talked about Conor before on this show. One of the unique things about Conor McGregor, he uses a very upright stance, very balanced. He doesn't waste a lot of energy with that hectic head movement. Keeps his hands down. And if you notice when he has his hands down, he can do that because he's really keeping the distance. He's not setting that up with his hands so much as he's setting it up with those kicks. You see him throw that spinning heel kick all the time. It's never landed. He's not throwing that so that it lands. He's throwing it so he establishes that distance. So when he's throwing, he kind of has his hands out. His hands are almost kind of like it's like a counterbalance. Right. It allows him to kind of stay upright and kind of get back into his upright position where he can kind of fire off those roundhouses, zero telegraph. It's like super quick. It's crazy, crazy fast.
Super fast speed.
Super fast speed. And then another technique he really likes to use, that side kick, kind of throws it at the knee. And it's kind of funny. You see it when he does that. His opponents kind of mirror it, and they'll try to throw one back at him. That usually won't work, but they do it. And he kind of like modifies it, turns his leg so it doesn't catch that elbow. There's just like a bunch of little things he does. That spinning hook kick we talked about really whips it, even though, like we said, he's never really landed it. The name of the game here, Nate is a very linear attacker. It's all about Conor really making use of all the different angles. He's going to attack from wider angles, attack him at his base. Nate can be stationary, can plant that leg and really try to sit into his combinations, and Conor could really, really go to work on that base and sort of take away Nate's one strength, his boxing, and by taking away that power. He has that roundhouse, throws that spinning back kick. It's so quick, so fast. So, man, we say all that. Conor's so good. What's the point of even talking about Nate? Well, we talk about Nate because Nate's freaking awesome. There's just something about Nate. You never know what's going to happen.
You can never count him out, that's for sure.
No, you don't know what's going to happen. He might walk away mad at you in an interview. He might just sit down with you and, like, chill with you when you're nobody. That's just Nate. He's authentically himself, just like Conor's authentically himself. I think that's why fans like both these guys so much, and that's why, as we broke down in our first breakdown, despite we don't think mental games will play much of a role here, because these guys are some of the mentally toughest dudes in the sport. It's gonna be fun seeing them trash talk each other in the cage. Conor can say or do what he does. Nate's gonna fight any different. Nate can say or do what he does. Conor's not gonna fight any different. This is a tough one for Nate. He does kind of have a plotting style. Let me try to get into a couple things that Nate does. Maybe potentially he could do something.
The path to victory.
Yeah. So Nate's wrestling is non-existent.
That is true.
Wow, that's a great point, Fiat. That totally sounds like he can win there. Okay, so his wrestling isn't very good. Almost anyone that fights him has better wrestling than he does. And he'll almost bait you in, knowing that you have that advantage. You can take him to the ground pretty easily. So he almost kind of pressures you a bit and then baits the opponent to change levels, and he doesn't really defend against it. That's his version of wrestling. He allows you to take him to the ground because his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is super, super good. So he baits the people to, like, take him down so that he can set up his submissions. I don't know if Conor's going to play that game with him. That is one of the things that Nate could do. If Conor does play that game with him, Nate is very good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He might have a chance at submitting them. I mean, I'm trying. Here's a couple other things Nate can do. Like we said, Conor really likes to throw those spinning back kicks, and he really likes to throw it, time it. Robin Black, when he did the breakdown of the RDA Conor McGregor fight, he talked about how RDA likes to keep people in his headlights, and he'll do that by, like, whipping kicks. Like, he'll throw a roundhouse if you go move to the left. He'll kind of, like, throw a hook when you move to the right, just corral you, make sure you're always kind of, like, in his headlights, right in front of him, so he can throw what he wants. Conor does a very similar thing, and when you see guys start to kind of float right, he kind of throws that spinning back kick, kind of corrals them back. But he does this almost every single time people do that too. It's very instinctive. If you watch his fights, he does this a large majority of the time. This is something, if Nate goes back and looks at the film, maybe he could take advantage of. We've seen Conor, because he does this almost instinctively, sometimes he kind of gets off balance if the fighter was kind of faking right, but then kind of moves forward. If you watch that Poirier fight, he actually, like, fell over. He kind of threw the kick, but, like, lost his balance. Another thing Conor does, we talked about how he likes to keep his hands down. He likes to not waste any movement. And one of the bad things he does, though, is sometimes he does keep those hands down after a flurry. So he'll go in with his combination, his leg kick, and then, like, 1-2, whatever he does. And then he'll kind of glue that lead hand back to his hip. And he's not doing this because he's bad at boxing or whatever. The guy's a great boxer. He's doing this with a purpose. It's to balance and be able to set up that kick again. Those aren't weaknesses. They're just tendencies that he has. Conor really won't have weaknesses, but there are tendencies that he has that maybe Nate could take advantage of. So if Nate can time that spinning kick, if he moves right, that's when Nate really needs to go in and fire off that 1-2 of his. Really hit Conor with something, and probably knock Conor off balance, because he's going to be on one leg with that power going back, and he's not going to be able to hit him with his foot. And if he moves off balance, that's a good time for Nate to crack him. And that's really what Nate needs to do. He's not going to win a large majority of this fight. There's going to be pockets of chaos. And in those pockets of chaos, Nate needs to take advantage of it. Another one of those pockets of chaos is when Conor throws these flurries. If Nate can defend against him, he needs to really check leg kicks. We saw him do this against Johnson. He's really going to have to check leg kicks. He's really going to have to bring his A game. He's going to have to move a bit. But when Conor goes in and he kind of keeps that hands down approach against other fighters where he's sort of out of their range, he won't be out of the range with a Nate Diaz. As soon as Conor finishes that that combination. Bam! He's got to crack him with that 1-2. Nate employs a killer rock back counter. I talked about this in my Stephen Thompson, Johnny Hendricks breakdown, where he kind of plants on that back foot, moves just out of the range of a linear attack, then boom, goes back, cracks him with that 1-2. Loves that hook straight combination. If Conor goes in with a flurry and he's able to step back and Conor has that hand glued at his hip like he usually does when he finishes those combinations, that's an opportunity for Nate to crack him with something too. So those are things that Nate needs to do if he wants a chance in this fight.
He needs to capitalize on those openings.
He needs to capitalize. He's going to be losing the large majority of this fight, like I said. There are going to be pockets of chaos. There are going to be pockets and opportunities. Conor doesn't have weaknesses. He just maybe has certain tendencies that you can sort of maybe capitalize on if you do everything perfectly, and he sort of messes up a bit. So really, it's a tough fight for Nate. It's a tough fight for Nate. We usually pick against each other on this. I just don't see how Nate wins it. But how about this? I'll go against the Mystic Mac prediction.
Oh, okay.
I think
All right.
I think Nate is a tough dude. I see him going. You know what? If I say second round, it's already more than Mystic Mac. I'll say he lasts to the second round. So even if he makes it out and Conor knocks him out in the first second, at least he made it to the second round.
Okay.
I'm calling Nate Diaz. He's tough, man. And here's the thing: even if he capitalized on every single thing I said, Conor will probably still win the fight. Conor is that good. It's not that Nate Diaz is a bad fighter. It's that Conor is probably the baddest dude on the planet right now. The combination of things he can do, the speed, the power, the level of technique that he has, it's amazing. It's incredible. He's really something to watch. It's really awesome that the UFC kind of has this guy, what he does for them outside the UFC just with his personality. But man, for us fight fans, what a joy it is to watch him fight.
It's a great time to be watching the UFC with that kind of talent on TV. It's amazing. Well, here's a question for you. Over under 5 bird flips between the two fighters during the fight.
Ooh, man. Over under 5. Man, I'll take the over. I mean, Nate's at least 4. You got to imagine Conor's going to respond once or twice. I mean, Conor, what was it? Dennis Seaver fight?
Oh, yeah.
Flipped him off before the bell even rung. So, is it like once the fight starts or just like once they're in the octagon? Because there might be a few while they're just being announced.
Oh, that's true. Once from the octagon. Okay,
yeah. I'll take the over on 5 if it's once
Okay.
they're in the octagon. Because like Nate will walk in with a middle finger, and then when he calls his name, he's gonna flip off Conor, and when they're introducing Conor, he's gonna flip off. That's 3 right there.
All right. Well, will there be a glove tap?
0% chance. There will be. That's another 2. There will be a simultaneous middle finger from both of them during the club tap. Man, 5, easy. Easy for 5. We'll keep a track of that.
Okay,
and we'll
yes,
talk
yes.
about it next Bros. Man, really, really excited about this fight. UFC 196 this Saturday. Main card starts at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. You guys would want to check this out. Should be really, really awesome. We got a title fight on the line. Holly Holm, Miesha Tate, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor. Not a title fight. Not even in their weight class at 170.
But this is a fan fight.
It is a fan fight. Let's just, as fans, hope that Nate shows up in shape.
Well, he's been training for a triathlon, so granted, triathlon training isn't fight training, but at least he won't come in out of shape.
Skinny fat.
Skinny fat, yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a tough fight for Nate. It's a tough fight for Tate, but they should be both entertaining fights.
I agree.
All right, guys. It's going to be the ultimate fight. Weed versus speed. You guys need to check it out. And until next time, we are
The Bros, you knows.